"You will address the Admiral with respect," Lieutenant Commander Jackson's voice boomed across the Naval Intelligence briefing room at Norfolk Naval Station. Victoria Chen didn't flinch as the 6'4" career officer loomed over her desk, his weathered face reddened with frustration. "Your fancy analysis and keyboard skills don't mean anything in the real world of naval operations. Stick to your spreadsheets and leave the tactical assessments to those who've actually seen combat." The room fell silent as other intelligence officers averted their eyes, some smirking behind computer screens. Victoria remained perfectly still, her slender fingers poised above her keyboard. For a brief moment, as she reached for her water bottle, her blazer shifted, revealing the edge of an intricate tattoo on her upper back. Admiral Davis, who had been observing from the doorway, narrowed his eyes in recognition. They had just disrespected the wrong analyst. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." I wonder where you're watching this story from today. Perhaps you're in a coastal town like San Diego, or a bustling city like Washington, D.C., or maybe somewhere in America's heartland. Wherever you are, I'm sure you've witnessed someone being underestimated. Before, that moment when people judge based on appearances only to be stunned when the truth is revealed. But rarely does it happen quite like this. Victoria Chen had always been a woman who chose her words carefully. At 35, her petite frame and quiet demeanor caused many to underestimate her professional capabilities. She lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment in Norfolk, Virginia, just 2 miles from the naval base. The kind with white walls and standard-issue furniture that could belong to anyone. Her home was spartanly decorated save for a locked wooden chest tucked away in her closet, containing items from a past life she rarely discussed. 6 years had passed since Victoria had transitioned from active field operations to naval intelligence analysis. 6 years since she had made the difficult decision to step back from her role as one of the most accomplished snipers in naval special warfare history. These days she worked behind a computer analyzing intelligence reports and creating threat assessments for naval operations in the Pacific region. Her colleagues respected her thoroughness and attention to detail, but what they didn't know was that her understanding came not just from training manuals and intelligence briefings, but from years of boots-on-the-ground experience in some of the most dangerous regions on Earth. Victoria had made a deliberate choice to leave field operations behind. The transition hadn't been easy. She still woke occasionally from nightmares reliving operations in places that didn't officially exist. Missions that would never appear in any public record. The small tattoo on her spine, a subtle black crosshair design with her unit designation, remained her private reminder of who she had been and what she had accomplished. It stayed hidden beneath her professional attire, a secret kept from her current colleagues. 2 years ago, Victoria's mentor and former commanding officer, Captain Eleanor Hayes, had passed away after a brief battle with cancer. Eleanor had been a trailblazer for women in naval special operations and had personally recruited Victoria from the Naval Academy, recognizing something in the quiet engineering student that others had missed. Her death left a void in Victoria's life that work alone couldn't fill. For months after the funeral, Victoria would visit the base shooting range during off hours, running through precision drills that had once been second nature. It was her way of processing grief, maintaining a connection to Eleanor's memory and the person she herself had once been. She kept Eleanor's challenge coin in her desk drawer, a tangible link to the woman who had taught her that patience and precision were more powerful than brute force or loud confidence. Eleanor had been the one to teach her that a sniper's greatest asset wasn't just accuracy, but judgment, knowing when to take the shot and, more importantly, when not to. The idea to join the Pacific Fleet Intelligence Briefing Team came from Commander Michaels, a former operations officer who had worked with Victoria in the field. "You know, Chen," he said during a chance meeting in the Pentagon cafeteria, "with your field experience and analytical skills, you'd be invaluable to the Pacific Intelligence team. They need someone who can translate data into actionable intelligence. Someone who understands what things look like on the ground." Victoria had considered the suggestion carefully. The Pacific theater was becoming increasingly complex with rising tensions and territorial disputes. The position would put her skills to use in a meaningful way while keeping her safely behind a desk, a compromise that honored her past while acknowledging her desire for a different future. After careful consideration, Victoria applied for and received the transfer to the Pacific Fleet Intelligence Team, based in Norfolk. It wasn't until her third week that she encountered Lieutenant Commander Jackson, the team's deputy director, and the nephew of Admiral Harrison, a highly respected fleet commander. Jackson had built his reputation through a combination of family connections and genuine talent for naval strategy. He had served honorably aboard several destroyers and had participated in multiple joint exercises but had never seen actual combat, something he carefully obscured through war stories that grew more elaborate with each telling. Jackson was used to being the team's star, the one whose assessments carried the most weight in briefings, the one junior officers looked to for approval and guidance. Victoria's quiet confidence and razor-sharp analysis had not gone unnoticed by the senior leadership, and not in a way that pleased Jackson. The morning of their first confrontation, Victoria had arrived early to prepare for a briefing on Chinese naval movements near disputed territories. She wore a perfectly pressed navy blue pantsuit, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. Nothing about her appearance suggested her background or the years of elite training that had shaped her mind and body. She was just another intelligence analyst with a computer and a stack of reports. Jackson and his informal entourage of junior officers entered the briefing room like a small parade, their confident voices filling the space with discussions of weekend plans and sports scores. Victoria continued working, focusing on refining her assessment, until Jackson deliberately placed his coffee mug on her keyboard. "Sorry, didn't see you working there," he said with a smile that suggested otherwise. "We need this room for some preliminary discussions." His colleagues already forming a circle around the main conference table. Victoria gathered her materials without protest. "No problem, sir," she said, maintaining professional courtesy. "I'll finish my preparation elsewhere." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As she reached for her tablet, Jackson picked it up, first examining the screen. "Interesting analysis for someone who's never been in theater," he said, his voice carrying a distinct note of condescension. "This isn't academic exercise, Chen. We're planning for real-world contingencies." He handed the tablet back carelessly, causing Victoria to fumble slightly as she caught it. More laughter followed as Victoria quietly exited, feeling the eyes of everyone in the room following her retreat. That first encounter set the tone for what became an escalating pattern of professional undermining and exclusion. "He does this to every woman who doesn't have combat experience," explained Lieutenant Rivera, a communications specialist, as they waited for coffee in the break room. "Either you played the admiring audience to his strategic genius, or you become a target." The warning did little to prepare Victoria for the systematic campaign that followed. In the days and weeks that came, she found herself subjected to a carefully orchestrated pattern of professional sabotage designed to undermine her credibility. It began with subtle exclusion from critical meetings about her own area of expertise. When her analyses were presented, Jackson would question her methodology, often with pointed remarks about theoretical versus practical understanding. Despite her extensive field experience, Victoria's background remained classified, with access restricted to those with specific clearance. Her personnel file listed her previous position simply as technical support for special operations, a deliberately vague description that allowed Jackson and others to assume she had merely provided logistical assistance from safe headquarters. In briefings when Victoria offered assessments based on her first-hand knowledge of terrain or operational realities, she was frequently interrupted with questions like, "And how many ships have you served on?" or "When exactly were you in that region?" Comments designed to highlight her presumed lack of field experience. During strategy sessions, her tactical insights were dismissed with patronizing explanations about the realities of naval operations, as if she were a fresh academy graduate rather than a decorated veteran. The professional isolation extended beyond formal meetings. Informal strategy discussions happened over drinks at the officers' club, where Victoria found herself conveniently not invited. Critical updates were shared through unofficial channels, excluding her from information loops necessary for her job. Jackson's inner circle took their cues from him, treating her with professional politeness in public settings, but systematically undermining her work behind the scenes. "Just transfer to a domestic analysis team," one colleague advised quietly. "That's what most do when they hit this wall. It's not worth the constant battle." The suggestion only strengthened Victoria's resolve. She hadn't survived sniper school and multiple combat deployments to be driven away by office politics. The leadership chain offered little support. When Victoria raised concerns about being excluded from critical information sharing, Captain Reynolds, the department head and a longtime colleague of Jackson's father, waved off her concerns. "Intelligence work is competitive by nature," Chen, he said, not looking up from his computer. "If you're having trouble keeping up, perhaps you should consider whether this is the right placement for you." The systematic undermining extended to her work product as well. Her reports were scrutinized for minor errors, while similar mistakes in other analysts' work went unmentioned. Her requests for additional intelligence resources were deprioritized. During performance reviews, her contributions were minimized while any oversight was magnified. The situation reached a critical point when Victoria's detailed analysis of a new Chinese naval facility contradicted Jackson's assessment. Her report, based on careful satellite imagery analysis and human intelligence, suggested the facility had significant submarine capabilities that posed a greater threat than previously recognized. Jackson had already submitted his analysis downplaying the facility's importance, a position that aligned with the Admiral's preference for avoiding escalation in the region. During the briefing, Jackson interrupted Victoria's presentation. "This assessment is speculative at best and alarmist at worst," he stated firmly. "Chen's lack of operational experience leads to textbook analyses that don't account for real-world factors. Perhaps if she had actually seen these types of facilities in person, rather than just in training simulations, she'd understand the difference between theoretical and actual threats." Admiral Harrison nodded in agreement. "We appreciate your thoroughness, Ms. Chen, but we'll proceed with Commander Jackson's assessment for now. I suggest you revisit your analysis with his guidance." The dismissal was public and definitive. That evening, Victoria sat alone in her apartment, staring at the ceiling fan as it rotated in endless circles. She thought about Eleanor and what her mentor would have done in this situation. Eleanor had always taught her that sometimes the most powerful response was patience. Wait for the right moment, then take the shot. Only this wasn't a battlefield with clear enemies and objectives. This was a career she had chosen, a second chapter she had wanted. Just as Victoria was considering requesting a transfer, her secure phone buzzed with a priority message. Admiral Davis, Pacific Fleet Intelligence Commander, was making an unscheduled visit to review regional threat assessments personally. All senior analysts were to prepare briefing materials focusing specifically on emerging capabilities and underestimated threats. Victoria recognized the opportunity immediately. If she couldn't be heard through the normal channels, perhaps the Admiral's visit offered a different path. For the next 3 days, Victoria worked almost nonstop, pulling together comprehensive analysis on the disputed facility. She accessed classified satellite imagery from her special access clearance and quietly reached out to former field contacts, now serving in the region. She meticulously documented inconsistencies in previous assessments and compiled evidence supporting her conclusions. When Admiral Davis arrived, the briefing room was tense with anticipation. As the Pacific Fleet's senior intelligence officer, his assessments carried significant weight in operational planning. Jackson positioned himself prominently, greeting the Admiral with familiar confidence. "I've prepared a comprehensive overview, sir," he said, leading Davis toward the main briefing screen. Admiral Davis, a veteran intelligence officer with 30 years of experience, nodded politely, but his eyes scanned the room. "I understand there was some disagreement about the significance of the Tsingtao facility," he said. "I'd like to hear all perspectives. Who prepared the alternative assessment?" Victoria stepped forward. "I did, sir." Victoria, Chen, Pacific Analysis Desk. Jackson's expression tightened as Davis gestured for her to proceed. For the next 15 minutes, Victoria presented her analysis with calm precision, highlighting specific evidence that had been overlooked or misinterpreted. She pointed out construction patterns consistent with advanced submarine pens and support facilities for nuclear capabilities. Her assessment was methodical, emotionless, and devastating to the previous conclusions. When she finished, Admiral Davis studied her carefully. "That's an impressive analysis, Miss Chen, very detailed. Where did you develop this level of expertise in military construction patterns?" Before Victoria could answer, Jackson interrupted. "Admiral, with all due respect, Chen is primarily a data analyst. Her assessment overestimates capabilities based on academic models rather than operational experience." Admiral Davis turned to Jackson with a neutral expression. "And your combat experience, Commander, what operations have you participated in that inform your different conclusion?" Jackson straightened his uniform. "I've served on 3 destroyer deployments in the Pacific, sir, and participated in numerous joint exercises with our allies." Davis nodded, then turned back to Victoria. "And you, Miss Chen, what field experience informs your assessment?" The room grew quiet as all eyes turned to Victoria. This was the moment that would either vindicate her or confirm Jackson's dismissals. "I cannot discuss specific operations, Admiral," she replied carefully. "But my assessment is based on direct observation of similar facilities during my previous assignment. If you check my personnel file under code Windrunner, you'll find the relevant experience." The mention of the classified designation caused Davis to raise an eyebrow. He turned to his aide and whispered something. The young officer left the room, returning minutes later with a secure tablet. Davis entered his authentication and read silently for several moments, his expression changing subtly as he scrolled through information invisible to the others. When he looked up, his eyes held new recognition. "I see," he said simply. "Commander Jackson, I'd like to speak with Miss Chen privately. Please continue the briefing with the other matters we need to cover. I'll rejoin shortly." Jackson's face registered confusion, but he complied, directing the team to the next agenda item as Davis gestured for Victoria to follow him to a secure conference room. Once inside, Davis closed the door and faced Victoria directly. 8 confirmed. High-value target eliminations in denied territory as part of Task Force Blue Spear. Decorated twice for extraordinary service under extreme conditions. Advanced training in construction assessment, specifically to identify nuclear development facilities. He set down the tablet. "That's not the background of a desk jockey, Miss Chen." Victoria remained at parade, rest her expression neutral. "No, sir." The Admiral studied her for a moment. "Why haven't you made your background known to the team?" "There are elements that remain classified, sir," she replied. "And frankly, I wanted my analysis to stand on its merit, not my service record." Davis nodded thoughtfully. Commendable, but perhaps misguided in this environment. Sometimes capability needs to be demonstrated, not just assumed. He paused, considering something. The Pacific Fleet War Games are scheduled for next month. Traditionally, an intelligence officer participates to provide real-time assessment of opposition capabilities. I think your perspective would be valuable this year. The suggestion took Victoria by surprise. The annual war games were a major naval exercise involving actual ships, aircraft, and personnel, simulating combat scenarios. Intelligence officers rarely participated in the physical exercises themselves. I'd be honored, sir, but such assignments typically go to senior intelligence staff. Davis smiled slightly. In this case, I think we need your specific expertise. Sometimes the best way to change perceptions is through direct demonstration, wouldn't you agree? When they returned to the main briefing, the session continued without reference to their private conversation. Victoria noticed Jackson, watching her with increased suspicion, but the remainder of the Admiral's visit proceeded without incident. Davis thanked the team for their thorough preparation, giving no indication of his intentions regarding Victoria's future role. The following day, Victoria received official notification of her temporary assignment to the Pacific Fleet War Games as the Intelligence Liaison Officer. The role would require her to participate in physical training exercises, combat simulations, and live fire demonstrations alongside operational units. The notification appeared in the team's assignment roster, visible to everyone, including Jackson and his supporters. The reaction was immediate. Jackson appeared in Victoria's office doorway, his expression a mixture of disbelief and anger. War games are operational exercises, Chen, not data analysis seminars, he said, loud enough for nearby staff to hear. You do understand you'll be expected to actually participate, not just observe from the command center. Victoria looked up from her computer, her expression neutral. I appreciate your concern, Commander, but I believe I can handle the assignment. Jackson leaned closer, lowering his voice. This isn't about analyzing surveillance photos from an air-conditioned office. There's physical training, simulated combat scenarios, actual military skills required. I'd hate to see you embarrass yourself and the Intelligence Division. Victoria met his gaze steadily. Your concern is noted, sir. If you'll excuse me, I have preparations to make. For the next 3 weeks, Victoria maintained her regular duties while quietly preparing for the upcoming exercise. She resumed regular visits to the base training facilities, working out during off hours to readjust her body to the physical demands that would be expected. Muscle memory from years of training began to resurface as she ran through familiar drills and conditioning exercises. The rumors spread quickly throughout the Intelligence Division. Theories about her unexpected assignment ranged from administrative error to family connections to inappropriate relationships with senior officers. Victoria ignored the speculation, focusing instead on her preparation and continuing her regular analysis work with unshaken precision. As the exercise date approached, Jackson made one final attempt to assert his authority. The day before the teams were scheduled to deploy, he called Victoria into his office, closing the door for privacy. Look, Chen, he began, his tone surprisingly conciliatory. I don't know how you managed to get this assignment, but it's not too late to request a different role. These exercises can be physically demanding and potentially embarrassing for someone without operational background. I could help arrange a more suitable position for you, one that better matches your skill set. Victoria recognized the offer for what it was, a final attempt to maintain the established hierarchy and prevent her from demonstrating capabilities that might challenge his position. Thank you for your concern, Commander, she replied evenly. But I'm comfortable with the assignment. Jackson's expression hardened. Have it your way then. Don't say I didn't try to help you when you're struggling to keep up with the operators. The Pacific Fleet War Games began on a clear Monday morning aboard the USS Roosevelt aircraft carrier battle group. Participants gathered in the carrier's massive hangar deck for initial briefings and team assignments. Victoria arrived early wearing the standard Navy physical training uniform, her hair pulled back in a regulation bun. She stood quietly reviewing the exercise parameters as other participants filtered in, forming natural groups based on previous relationships and assignments. Jackson arrived with several other officers from intelligence. Command his entrance, drawing attention and greetings from various participants. He acknowledged Victoria with a curt nod before joining a group of operations officers near the front of the assembly area. The exercise commander, Captain Rodriguez, called the group to attention and began outlining the simulation scenarios and team structures. For this year's exercise, we'll be incorporating several new elements, including enhanced intelligence integration and realistic opposition force capabilities, he announced. Teams will rotate through various scenarios, including reconnaissance, hostile environment, extraction, threat identification, and rapid response deployment. Each team will include operational personnel and support staff working together as they would in actual combat situations. As Rodriguez read through team assignments, Victoria found herself placed with Red Team, a group tasked with particularly challenging scenarios, including nighttime operations and hostile environment navigation. Jackson had been assigned to Blue Team, traditionally given more straightforward objectives and conventional warfare scenarios. His expression of surprise at the assignments didn't go unnoticed by those nearby. Following the briefing, teams dispersed to prepare for their first scenarios. Victoria joined her assigned group, finding herself among Navy SEALs, Marine, reconnaissance specialists, and naval aviators, all with extensive combat experience. Their initial reaction to having an intelligence analyst assigned to their team was one of poorly concealed skepticism. "No offense, but what exactly are you bringing to this party, ma'am?" asked Chief Petty Officer Ramirez, a veteran SEAL with multiple combat tours. "We usually get intel before the mission, not during it." Victoria met his gaze calmly. "I'm here to provide real-time intelligence assessment and scenario adaptation, Chief. Sometimes the situation changes, and you need someone who can reinterpret the intelligence picture on the fly." Ramirez exchanged glances with his teammates, clearly unconvinced. "Well, stick close to me in the physical portions of the exercise. I'll make sure you don't get left behind." Victoria nodded without comment, saving her energy for the demonstrations to come. The first day's exercises focused on basic skills assessment. Teams rotated through stations, testing marksmanship, physical fitness, tactical movement, and communications procedures. Victoria completed each station with quiet competence, her performance solid, but not exceptional. She remained in the middle of the pack, deliberately avoiding drawing attention to herself, while observing Jackson's more flamboyant attempts to impress the operational personnel on his team. It wasn't until the advanced marksmanship evaluation that Victoria's facade began to show cracks. Participants were required to engage targets at various distances, under different conditions, including limited visibility and unusual positions. When Victoria's turn came, she approached the firing line with practiced ease, checking the provided rifle with efficient movements that caught the attention of the rangemaster. "You familiar with that weapon system, analyst?" he asked with mild surprise. Victoria nodded. "I've had some training." She proceeded to adjust the scope, making minute corrections, before assuming a textbook firing position. Her first 3 shots formed a tight group at center mass of the target at 300 meters. She transitioned smoothly to the next target at 500 meters, repeating the performance with mechanical precision. For the final target at 700 meters, she paused slightly, adjusting her position to account for a subtle crosswind, before placing all 3 rounds within a 2-inch circle. As she stood and safe, the weapon silence had fallen over the nearby observers. The rangemaster checked the targets through his spotting scope before turning to Victoria with newfound respect. "That's some training, ma'am. Mind if I ask where you learned to shoot like that?" Before Victoria could respond, Jackson's voice cut through the moment. "Beginner's luck, or maybe the targets were mislabeled. No way an analyst makes those shots without rangefinder assistance." The comment drew uncomfortable glances from the operational personnel who recognized the skill they had just witnessed regardless of its source. The range master, a 20-year special operations veteran, fixed Jackson with a level stare. Those weren't lucky shots, Commander. That was textbook precision marksmanship. But if you think the range is incorrectly set up, maybe you'd like to demonstrate the proper distances with your own qualification. Jackson's face flushed, but he moved to the firing line, determined to match or exceed Victoria's performance. His shooting, while competent by ordinary standards, fell noticeably short of Victoria's precision, particularly at the longest distances. Word of the unexpected performance spread quickly through the exercise participants. By evening, Victoria found the attitudes of her team members shifting from skepticism to curiosity. During the team planning session for the next day's scenario, Ramirez approached her directly. "So where'd you really learn to shoot like that, Chen? That wasn't standard Navy qualification training." Victoria maintained her professional demeanor. "I had specialized training for a previous assignment, Chief. It's been a while, but some skills stay with you." Ramirez studied her with new interest. "Right, previous assignment. Got it." Whatever her background, Victoria's demonstrated skills had earned her a measure of respect that changed the team's dynamics as they prepared for the more challenging scenarios to come. The second day brought the first true test as teams faced a complex extraction scenario. Red Team was tasked with locating and retrieving sensitive materials from a simulated hostile compound while avoiding opposition forces. During the planning phase, Victoria quietly contributed insights about approach vectors and likely enemy positions that revealed an intimate familiarity with tactical operations. As the team moved through the training course, Victoria's movements betrayed years of muscle memory, her positioning and situational awareness matching those of the special operators on the team. When they encountered the opposition force, her response was immediate and decisive, identifying the tactical weakness in the enemy position and communicating it to the team leader in the precise terminology of combat operations. Following the successful completion of the scenario with top marks, Captain Rodriguez pulled Victoria aside. "That was impressive work, Chen. Your file mentioned some specialized training, but I didn't realize the extent." Victoria maintained her professional composure. "Thank you, sir. Just applying standard intelligence assessment protocols to the tactical situation." Rodriguez smiled slightly. "Right, standard protocols." The knowing look in his eyes suggested he recognized there was more to her background than her current role indicated. Nearby, Jackson watched the exchange, his expression darkening as he realized the shifting perceptions taking place. That evening, as teams gathered in the carrier's mess hall for dinner, the atmosphere had noticeably changed. Victoria found herself welcomed at a table with operational team members, while Jackson sat with a dwindling group of supporters, his earlier confidence visibly diminished. The final day's challenge would be the most demanding of full-scale combat simulation, incorporating all elements of naval warfare from air operations to ground combat. Teams would be evaluated on their overall effectiveness with individual performances, noted by senior observers, including Admiral Davis, who had arrived to witness the culmination of the exercise. The final exercise was designed to simulate a naval crisis scenario in the South China Sea. As teams prepared their gear and reviewed mission parameters, Victoria noticed Jackson approaching with his characteristic swagger, surrounded by his diminishing but still present entourage. "Heard you got lucky with some trick shots yesterday, Chen," he said, loud enough for nearby personnel to hear. "Tomorrow's scenarios involve actual tactical decision-making under pressure, not just range qualifications." The comment drew uncomfortable glances from those who had witnessed Victoria's consistent performance throughout the exercises. Victoria checked her equipment without responding, the practiced motions of securing her tactical vest and communications gear revealing years of muscle memory. Jackson stepped closer, his voice lowered. I've been doing some research on you, Chen. There's nothing in your record about special weapons training. Whatever game you're playing stops tomorrow when real operators take over. He turned away before she could respond, leaving Victoria to complete her preparations in peace. As dawn broke over the carrier battle group, the final exercise began. Red Team, including Victoria, was assigned to conduct a reconnaissance and intelligence gathering mission on a simulated enemy installation represented by a training facility on a nearby island. The mission required nighttime insertion underwater, navigation and silent approach, all skills far beyond typical intelligence analyst training. As the team gathered for final briefing, Lieutenant Commander Ramirez, now showing Victoria genuine respect, outlined their approach. Chen, you'll stay with the command element and provide intelligence support from our forward position. Your marksmanship is solid, but this insertion requires specialized training. Victoria listened to the plan, then spoke quietly. With respect, sir, I believe I can be more valuable with the forward element. My previous experience includes this type of operation. Ramirez exchanged glances with the team leader. You're saying you've done combat swimming and nighttime insertion before? Victoria met his gaze steadily. Yes, sir, multiple times. After a moment's consideration, Ramirez nodded. All right, Chen, you're with the forward element. Don't make me regret this decision. As the team prepared for deployment, Admiral Davis and Captain Rodriguez observed from the command center. Jackson positioned himself nearby, providing commentary on the exercise parameters and team compositions. Admiral, I'm concerned about Red Team's decision to include Chen in their forward element, he said with practiced professional concern. She's an intelligence analyst, not a field operator. This type of mission requires years of specialized training. Admiral Davis listened without comment, his expression revealing nothing as he watched the teams deploy. The exercise began with Red Team launching from a combat rubber raiding craft 2 miles offshore. Victoria moved with the confidence of someone who had done this many times before, checking her equipment with practiced efficiency and entering the water with perfect form. The team navigated through darkness using underwater propulsion devices and rebreathers equipment that required significant training to operate safely. Jackson watched from the command center, his expression growing increasingly concerned as Victoria moved through the water with the same proficiency as the special operators. That's not possible, he muttered, watching her signature on the tracking system move smoothly toward the objective. She's an analyst. She sits behind a desk. Rodriguez glanced at him. Sometimes people have skills that don't appear in their current job description, Commander. The comment silenced Jackson as they continued monitoring the operation. Red Team made landfall precisely on schedule, navigating through simulated enemy patrols with practiced stealth. When they encountered an unexpected opposition force, Victoria immediately assumed a covering position, providing security while the team leaders assessed the situation. Her movements were fluid, economical, and revealed years of operational experience, the kind that couldn't be faked or quickly learned. As Pajika movements were cognitive operational experience, the kind that couldn't be faked or quickly learned. The scenario escalated. The opposition force deployed simulated reinforcements, cutting off the team's planned extraction route. Ramirez quickly gathered the team to assess alternatives. We need real-time intelligence on enemy positions to find a gap in their coverage. Chen, what assets can you access? Victoria activated her tactical tablet, pulling up the exercise parameters. I can request drone reconnaissance, but approval will take time we don't have. Alternatively, she hesitated before continuing, I can get to that ridgeline and provide direct observation. It's exposed but gives visibility over the entire area. Ramirez shook his head. Too risky. That position is outside our security perimeter. Victoria met his gaze. I've done this before, sir. This is what I was trained for. After a moment's consideration, Ramirez nodded. Take Martinez as security. You have 15 minutes to get eyes on and report back. Victoria moved through the underbrush. With practiced stealth, Martinez is seasoned, operators struggling to keep pace with her as she navigated the difficult terrain with surprising speed and confidence. Reaching the ridgeline, she immediately went prone using natural cover as she surveyed the opposition positions through specialized optics. Martinez watched with growing respect as she methodically mapped enemy locations, identifying patterns and weaknesses in their deployment. Returning to the team, Victoria briefed them with the precision of a veteran special operator. They've established a perimeter here, and here she indicated points on their tactical map. But there's a drainage culvert running beneath this section that doesn't appear on their coverage pattern. It's narrow but navigable and will put us within 50 meters of our extraction point. Ramirez studied the map. You're certain about this? Gap in their coverage. Victoria nodded. Positive, sir. I observed their patrol patterns for 12 minutes. They're maintaining consistent intervals, except at this junction. It's our best option. The team proceeded according to Victoria's assessment, successfully navigating the culvert and reaching their extraction point without detection, completing their mission with the highest score of any team in the exercise. As Red Team returned to the carrier, the mood was celebratory. Victoria found herself included in the post-mission analysis, her observations and tactical suggestions given the same weight as those from career operators. Jackson watched from the periphery, his earlier confidence replaced by confusion and growing suspicion. During the final briefing, Admiral Davis addressed all participants. This year's exercise demonstrated the critical importance of integrated operations between intelligence and tactical units, he began. When intelligence personnel truly understand operational realities and operators respect intelligence expertise, we maximize our effectiveness. Some teams achieved this integration better than others. He nodded toward Red Team. Victoria noticed Davis making eye contact with her specifically before continuing. Following the formal briefing, Admiral Davis approached Victoria directly. Impressive performance, Miss Chen, particularly the night insertion and tactical assessment. Most intelligence. Analysts I know would struggle with the physical aspects of that operation, let alone the tactical decision-making. Victoria maintained her professional demeanor. Thank you, Admiral. I was just applying my training. Davis nodded. Yes, your training. I've been reviewing your complete service record, Miss Chen, the portions that don't appear in the standard personnel database. He paused, allowing the statement to hang between them. I believe it's time we discussed your future role in Pacific Fleet Intelligence. Perhaps somewhere that better utilizes your complete skill set. Jackson, who had been approaching to speak with the Admiral, stopped short, overhearing the exchange. His expression revealed dawning comprehension as pieces began falling into place. The following morning, Victoria reported as ordered to Admiral Davis's temporary office aboard the carrier. As she entered, she noticed Captain Rodriguez and, surprisingly, Jackson already present. Davis gestured for her to be seated. Ms. Chen, I've asked Commander Jackson to join us because what I'm about to discuss affects the entire intelligence division. Victoria sat at parade rest, her expression neutral as Davis continued. After reviewing your complete service record and observing your performance during these exercises, I've made a decision regarding Pacific Fleet Intelligence operations. He turned to Jackson. Commander, you've done commendable work coordinating our intelligence assets, but recent developments in the region require specialized expertise that Miss Chen uniquely possesses. Jackson straightened in his chair, his expression carefully controlled. Of course, Admiral. Whatever the service requires. Davis nodded appreciatively before continuing. Effective immediately, I'm establishing a new tactical intelligence assessment unit reporting directly to Pacific Fleet Command. This unit will integrate intelligence analysis with operational planning, ensuring our assessments reflect ground truth, not just satellite imagery and signals intelligence. He turned to Victoria. Miss Chen, given your background as a naval special warfare sniper with 8 years of field operations, including 3 years with Task Force Blue Spear, I'm appointing you to lead this new unit. Your combined experience in both intelligence analysis and tactical operations makes you uniquely qualified for this role. Victoria maintained her composure despite the public acknowledgement of her classified background. I'm honored, Admiral. Thank you for your confidence. Davis continued. Your unit will have priority access to intelligence resources and direct input into operational planning. You'll select your team members from both the intelligence community and operational forces, creating a truly integrated capability. Jackson's face had gone pale as the implications became clear. His expression shifted from shock to understanding as the pieces of Victoria's background fell into place. Admiral, if I may, Jackson began, his voice carefully modulated. I've worked closely with our intelligence teams for 3 years. I'd be happy to assist Miss Chen in establishing this new unit. Davis considered him for a moment. That's commendable. Commander, I believe there is indeed a role for you in this transition. Miss Chen will need experienced intelligence officers who understand the conventional analysis process, while she brings the operational perspective. You'll report to her immediately to facilitate the integration of existing intelligence frameworks with her new methodology. The meeting concluded with administrative details and implementation timelines. As they exited the Admiral's office, Jackson fell into step beside Victoria, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine curiosity. Sniper qualified with Task Force Blue Spear, he said quietly. That explains a few things. Victoria maintained her professional demeanor, offering neither confirmation nor elaboration. Jackson continued. I owe you an apology, Chen. I made assumptions based on incomplete information. She stopped, turning to face him directly. It wasn't about incomplete information, Commander. It was about believing that someone's current role defines their capabilities. We all have chapters in our stories that aren't immediately visible. Jackson nodded slowly. Lesson learned. For what it's worth, I look forward to working with you in this new capacity, to seeing what we can accomplish together. Over the following weeks, Victoria established her new tactical intelligence unit, selecting team members based on their skills and adaptability rather than rank or connections. To everyone's surprise, Jackson proved to be a valuable asset, his conventional intelligence background complementing Victoria's operational experience. The transition wasn't without challenges. Bureaucratic resistance and territorial disputes threatened the unit's effectiveness, but Victoria navigated these obstacles with the same patience and precision she had once applied to her duties as a sniper. 3 months after the war games, Victoria's unit provided critical intelligence that enabled the successful interdiction of a weapons shipment bound for terrorist groups in Southeast Asia. Their assessment, combining conventional intelligence analysis with tactical operational insights, identified vulnerabilities in the smuggling operation that conventional methods had missed. The success brought recognition from the highest levels of naval command, cementing the unit's role in Pacific Fleet operations. One evening, as the team celebrated their success, Victoria found Jackson approaching her with uncharacteristic hesitation. Got a minute, Chen? He asked, gesturing toward a quiet corner away from the group. She nodded, following him to the more private space. There's something I've been wanting to ask you, he began. That first day in the briefing room when I dismissed your analysis, you could have revealed your background then. Put me in my place immediately. Why didn't you? Victoria considered the question. Revealing my background wouldn't have solved the real problem, she said finally. The issue wasn't about my credentials or experience. It was about a culture that values certain types of knowledge over others, that makes assumptions about capability based on appearance or current role. Exposing my service record might have silenced you temporarily, but wouldn't have changed the underlying attitudes. Jackson nodded slowly. Instead, you let your work speak for itself. Forced us all to recognize quality regardless of its source. Smart strategy. Victoria allowed a small smile. It wasn't strategy, Commander. It was patience. Sometimes the most powerful statement isn't dominating someone else. It's refusing to let them dictate how you measure your own worth. 6 months after the formation of the Tactical Intelligence Unit, Victoria received notification of her promotion to Lieutenant Commander, along with a commendation for her unit's contributions to regional security. The ceremony held aboard the flagship of the Pacific Fleet included senior officers from throughout the command. As Admiral Davis pinned the new rank insignia to her uniform, he spoke briefly about the importance of recognizing talent wherever it appears and however it manifests. Following the ceremony, Victoria found herself approached by a young female ensign recently assigned to the Intelligence Division. Commander Chen, the young officer, began hesitantly. "I wanted to thank you. Your unit's work has been inspirational, especially for junior officers like me, who don't come from traditional warfare communities." Victoria studied the young woman, recognizing in her eager expression the same determination she had once felt. "What's your background, Ensign?" The ensign straightened. "Cryptologic warfare, ma'am. But I've been taking additional tactical courses on my own time. I was hoping eventually I might be considered for your unit." Victoria nodded appreciatively. "Keep developing those skills, Ensign. My door is always open to those willing to push beyond conventional boundaries." As the ensign departed, Jackson approached, having observed the exchange. "Recruiting already?" he asked with a smile. Victoria shrugged, identifying talent. "Same thing I did with you despite our rough start." Jackson laughed, acknowledging the truth in her statement. They stood together watching the gathering of naval officers, the hierarchy of rank and specialty that defined their professional world. "You know what surprised me most about working for you," Jackson said after a moment. "It wasn't learning about your sniper background or your field operations. It was realizing how many others like you are out there. People with extraordinary capabilities, hidden beneath ordinary titles." Victoria nodded. "We all have our stories, Commander. The challenge is creating an environment where those stories can be shared and those capabilities recognized." 1 year after the War Games, Victoria's Tactical Intelligence Unit had become a model for similar organizations throughout the Navy. Their integrated approach, combining analytical rigor with operational reality, had transformed Pacific Fleet intelligence capabilities. Victoria had selected and trained 12 officers, creating a team that bridged the traditional divide between intelligence analysts and operational forces. In a quiet moment between missions, Victoria found herself alone in her office. She opened her desk drawer, removing the challenge coin that had belonged to Captain Eleanor Hayes. She ran her thumb across its surface, remembering her mentor's guidance. Eleanor had recognized Victoria's potential when others saw only a quiet academy graduate with good test scores, had pushed her toward the path that ultimately led to sniper school and special operations, had believed in capabilities others couldn't see. Victoria placed the coin on her desk beside the photograph now displayed openly of her sniper team from years earlier. Beside these, she positioned her new unit insignia, a design incorporating elements of both intelligence analysis and operational tactics. These physical objects represented the chapters of her story, a narrative more complex and nuanced than any single title or role could capture. As she prepared for a briefing with Admiral Davis's staff, Victoria straightened her uniform, feeling the weight of the commander insignia on her collar. The path from sniper to intelligence analyst to unit commander had not been linear or always visible to others. There had been chapters hidden from view, skills developed in shadow, moments of impact known only to a select few. But throughout she had maintained her sense of purpose, her commitment to serving effectively, regardless of role or recognition. The desk jockey with the sniper's precision had found her place not by abandoning either identity, but by integrating them into something more powerful than either could be alone. In doing so, she had created space for others to bring their full capabilities to the mission, however unconventional or unexpected those might be. Somewhere across America, someone else was being underestimated today. Someone's critical skills were being overlooked because they didn't match expectations of what capability should look like. Victoria's story offered a reminder that true strength often lies beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Patient, precise, and ultimately unstoppable. 2 years into leading the Tactical Intelligence Unit, Victoria's innovations had transformed Pacific Fleet operations. Her integrated teams now deployed alongside conventional forces, providing real-time intelligence analysis that bridged the gap between satellite data and ground truth. What had begun as an experimental approach had become essential doctrine adopted throughout naval intelligence. One Wednesday morning, as Victoria reviewed mission reports, in her office, a priority message flashed across her secure terminal. Chinese naval vessels had conducted aggressive maneuvers near a U.S. surveillance ship in disputed waters, escalating an already tense situation in the region. Within minutes, her secure phone rang. Admiral Davis's voice came through crisp and urgent. "Commander Chen, I need your team in my office in 30 minutes. Bring your assessment of Chinese capabilities in the Spratly Island sector." Victoria activated her team's alert system and began assembling the relevant intelligence. Jackson, now her deputy and a transformed officer from the arrogant figure of 2 years prior, immediately began coordinating with their operational specialists. When they arrived at Admiral Davis's conference room, they found a crisis team already assembled, including senior officers from operations planning and diplomatic liaison. The atmosphere was tense with the controlled urgency of professionals facing a potential conflict scenario. "Gentlemen, ladies," Davis began, "the situation has escalated beyond our previous assessments. Chinese naval forces have deployed advanced vessels to the region, including 2 new Type 055 destroyers with capabilities we haven't fully documented. We need to understand what we're facing and develop response options that demonstrate resolve without triggering unnecessary escalation." He turned to Victoria. "Commander Chen, your team has the most current assessment of their capabilities and tactical doctrine in the region. What are we dealing with?" Victoria stepped forward, activating the room's display system. Her team had prepared a comprehensive analysis integrating satellite imagery with human intelligence and signals intercepts. As she outlined the Chinese forces' capabilities and likely intentions, the room fell silent, all eyes focused on her precise breakdown of the tactical situation. What made her assessment unique was the operational context she provided, not just what equipment the Chinese forces had deployed, but how they would likely use it based on their training doctrine and previous behavior patterns. Admiral Davis studied the display. "These are systems we haven't previously observed in regional deployments. How confident are you in this assessment, Commander?" Victoria met his gaze. "Very confident, sir. We've been tracking components of these systems through shipyard activity and deployment preparations for the past 8 months. She nodded to Jackson, who added, "The intelligence trail we've assembled shows systematic capability development specifically designed for area denial operations in disputed territories. They've been preparing this deployment for at least a year." The operations officer, a senior captain, leaned forward. "That's speculation based on limited intelligence samples. We can't develop response options based on worst-case interpretations." Jackson, who 2 years earlier might have agreed with such criticism, now stepped forward confidently. "This isn't speculation, Captain. Commander Chen's team has integrated 37 distinct intelligence sources, including direct observation by our assets in the region. This assessment represents the consensus view of both analytical and operational specialists." Victoria allowed a moment of professional pride as she observed Jackson's defense of their methodology, his transformation from skeptic to advocate. reflected the broader changes her approach had fostered throughout the intelligence community. Davis nodded thoughtfully. What response options would you recommend, Commander Chen, based on your assessment of their capabilities and intentions? Victoria outlined 3 potential courses of action, each calibrated to demonstrate us resolve while avoiding unnecessary provocation. Her recommendations included specific force packages tailored to counter the Chinese capabilities, without creating an irreversible escalation path. What distinguished her options was their precision, each designed to address specific aspects of the Chinese deployment rather than simply matching force with force. As the briefing concluded, Davis assigned action items to each department. Commander Chen, your team will provide continuous intelligence support to our response force. I want your people embedded with each operational element, ensuring our commanders have real-time assessment of Chinese reactions and intentions. Victoria acknowledged the order, recognizing both the responsibility and the vote of confidence it represented. As the meeting disbanded, Admiral Davis asked Victoria to remain behind. When they were alone, Davis spoke candidly. That was impressive work, Commander. 2 years ago, we would have deployed based on satellite imagery and signals. Intelligence alone without the operational context your team provided. Victoria nodded her appreciation. Thank you, sir. Integrating analytical and operational perspectives gives us a more complete picture. Davis studied her thoughtfully. You've created something important, Chen. A new way of approaching intelligence that honors both technical analysis and operational reality. He paused before continuing. That's why I've recommended you for promotion to captain and assignment as Pacific Fleet Intelligence Director. Victoria couldn't hide her surprise. The position traditionally went to officers with decades of intelligence experience, not relatively junior commanders with unconventional backgrounds. Sir, that's several ranks above my current position. There are many more senior officers in line for that role. Davis smiled slightly. Sometimes the Navy needs to recognize talent regardless of traditional career paths. Your approach to intelligence has saved lives and prevented unnecessary conflicts. The promotion board agreed with my assessment. The official announcement comes next week. As Victoria absorbed this news, Davis continued, There's something else you should know. Your success has attracted attention beyond the Navy. The Director of National Intelligence has expressed interest in applying your methodical approaches to other intelligence agencies. You may be receiving some interesting offers in the coming months. Victoria maintained her professional composure despite the implications. I'm honored, sir, but my focus remains on our current situation. Davis nodded approvingly. As it should be. Handle this crisis first, Captain. We'll discuss your future afterward. He emphasized the new rank, slightly a preview of the promotion to come. As Victoria departed, she found Jackson waiting outside the conference room. Based on your expression, I'm guessing the Admiral shared the news about your promotion, he said, with a knowing smile. Victoria raised an eyebrow. How did you? Jackson laughed. Intelligence is my job, Commander. I've known about the promotion board's decision for 3 days. Considered it need-to-know information. Victoria shook her head, smiling despite herself. We have a crisis to manage, Commander. My promotion is secondary to ensuring our response force has the intelligence support they need. Jackson nodded professionally. Already in progress. Our teams are preparing deployment packages and coordination protocols. They'll be ready when the orders come through. As they walked toward the intelligence center, Jackson added casually, You know, when I first met you, I thought you were just another analyst with theoretical knowledge and no practical experience. I've never been more wrong about anyone in my entire career. Victoria glanced at him. We all make judgments based on incomplete information, Commander. The important thing is recognizing when those judgments need revision. Jackson nodded thoughtfully. The challenge is creating systems that allow for that revision, that don't lock us into first impressions. That's what you've done with this unit. created space for capabilities to be recognized regardless of source or background. Over the next 72 hours, Victoria's team provided continuous intelligence support to the U.S. Naval Task Force deployed. In response to the Chinese provocation, her integrated teams embedded with operational units provided unprecedented situational awareness, allowing commanders to calibrate their actions precisely based on real-time assessment of Chinese intentions and capabilities. When a Chinese vessel maneuvered aggressively toward a U.S. destroyer, the embedded intelligence team correctly assessed the action as a test of resolve rather than preparation for hostile action, enabling the destroyer captain to respond firmly, but without unnecessary escalation. As the crisis stabilized and tensions gradually decreased, Victoria found herself summoned to Washington for consultation with senior defense and intelligence officials. She arrived at the Pentagon on a crisp autumn morning, finding herself escorted to a conference room deep within the massive building. Inside, she found a gathering of intelligence directors from across the government agencies, including representatives from the CIA and National Security Agency. At the head of the table sat the Director of National Intelligence herself, a pioneering figure in the intelligence community and the first woman to hold the position. "Commander Chen, welcome to Washington." The DNI began, or should I say Captain Chen. "Your promotion becomes official tomorrow, I believe." Victoria acknowledged the greeting, maintaining her professional demeanor despite the august company. "Thank you, Madam Director. I appreciate the opportunity to brief you on our Pacific operations." The DNI smiled slightly. "This isn't just a briefing. Captain, we've been watching your innovations in Pacific Fleet intelligence with considerable interest. The integration of analytical and operational perspectives you've pioneered has applications well beyond your current assignment." For the next hour, Victoria outlined her approach to intelligence integration, explaining the methodology she had developed and the results they had achieved. She emphasized the importance of combining technical analysis with operational experience, creating teams that could translate raw intelligence into actionable insights for commanders in the field. As she concluded her presentation, the room fell silent for a moment before the DNI spoke again. "Impressive, Captain. You've essentially reimagined how intelligence supports operations, creating a model that bridges traditional divisions between analysts and operators." She exchanged glances with several others at the table before continuing. "That's why we've asked you here today. We're establishing a joint intelligence integration center designed to apply your methodologies across all intelligence agencies and military branches. We'd like you to lead this effort." Victoria absorbed this unexpected development with outward calm, though her mind raced with implications. "Madam Director, I'm honored by your confidence, but my experience is primarily within Naval Intelligence and Operations." The DNI nodded. "Precisely why you're the right person for this role. You've demonstrated the ability to bridge communities that traditionally operate separately. We need that perspective to break down the silos between our various intelligence organizations." As the meeting concluded, Victoria found herself with a decision more significant than any she had faced since leaving field operations. The offered position would place her at the center of American intelligence operations with unprecedented authority to reshape how information was collected, analyzed, and applied across all government agencies. It represented a level of influence she had never sought or imagined for herself, yet aligned perfectly with the principles she had fought to establish within her own organization. That evening in her hotel room, Victoria found herself staring out at the Washington Monument illuminated against the night sky. She thought about the path that had brought her here. From the precision and focus of her sniper training, through the analytical rigor of intelligence work, to the leadership challenges of building teams that transcended traditional boundaries. Each phase had required different skills, yet all had drawn on the same fundamental qualities: patience, precision, and the ability to see patterns others missed. Her secure phone buzzed with a message from Jackson. Heard about the offer from the DNI. Congratulations, Captain. I know whatever you decide, our unit will continue the work you started. Victoria smiled at his perceptiveness. He had indeed become an excellent intelligence officer, anticipating developments before they were officially announced. She typed a brief reply. Nothing decided yet. Still weighing options. We have good people regardless of what happens. The future is secure. As she prepared for bed, Victoria removed her uniform jacket, carefully hanging it in the hotel closet. As she did, her gaze fell on the small tattoo visible at the base of her neck when her collar was open. The simple crosshair design with her unit designation had been with her through each chapter of her career, a reminder of where she had begun and the skills that formed her foundation. Whatever role she accepted next, that foundation would remain. Unchanged, the sniper's patience and precision applied to new and broader targets. The following morning, Victoria returned to the Pentagon for a private meeting with the Secretary of the Navy. After congratulating her on her promotion, the Secretary addressed the DNI's offer directly. It's an extraordinary opportunity, Chen. Chance to reshape how intelligence functions across the entire government. The Navy would hate to lose you, but we recognize the importance of this initiative. Victoria listened carefully before responding. Sir, before I make any decision, I need to understand something. Would I be building another desk job or creating something that truly integrates operations and analysis? The Secretary considered her question. That's entirely up to you, Captain. The position comes with broad authority to structure the organization as you see fit. Most would approach it as a traditional headquarters role, but knowing your background and preferences, I suspect you'd create something different. Victoria nodded. If I accept, it would be with the understanding that the center would include operational components. People who do more than analyze data from comfortable offices in Washington. As she departed the Pentagon, Victoria had made her decision, though she would take the customary time to consider such a significant career move. The Joint Intelligence Integration Center represented an opportunity to expand the principles she had established in her unit, applying them across the full spectrum of national security operations. She would accept, but on her terms, ensuring the new organization maintained connections to operational reality, rather than becoming another layer of bureaucratic analysis. 3 months later, Victoria stood before the newly assembled staff of the Joint Intelligence Integration Center. The organization, located in a nondescript building in Northern Virginia, brought together specialists from across the intelligence and operational communities. As she surveyed the diverse group before her, Victoria recognized the magnitude of the challenge they faced, breaking down decades of institutional barriers and territorial instincts to create truly integrated intelligence capabilities. I won't begin with platitudes about the importance of our mission or the honor of your selection, she began. You all understand the stakes. Instead, I want to establish the fundamental principle that will guide everything we do here. She paused, making eye contact with key personnel throughout the room. Intelligence without operational context is academic. Operations without intelligence support are blind. Our job is to eliminate the gap between those worlds, creating a seamless flow of information and insight that serves the people who make decisions and take actions in the field. As she outlined her vision for the organization, Victoria emphasized the practical approaches that had proven successful in her naval unit. Integrated teams combining analytical and operational perspectives. Direct connection to field activities, ensuring headquarters guidance reflected ground truth. Regular rotation between analytical and operational roles, preventing the development of isolated specialist cultures. Throughout her presentation, she observed the reactions of her new staff, noting who responded with enthusiasm, who maintained professional skepticism, and who appeared resistant to her approach. Following the formal introduction, Victoria made a Point of meeting individually with key team members, learning their backgrounds and perspectives. She discovered a Marine intelligence officer who had served in Afghanistan and Iraq, bringing valuable ground combat experience. A CIA analyst who had pioneered new approaches to pattern recognition and signals intelligence. A special operations veteran who had worked with multiple intelligence agencies during complex missions. Each represented capabilities and perspectives that would strengthen the organization if properly integrated. By the end of the first month, Victoria had established the center's operational framework, creating teams that deliberately mixed backgrounds, experience levels, and agency affiliations. She instituted training programs that exposed analysts to operational realities and operators to analytical methodologies, each learning to appreciate the other's perspective and contribution. Most significantly, she established a rotation system that would eventually ensure every team member had experience in both headquarters and field operations, regardless of their primary specialty. The center faced its first major test 6 months after formation, when intelligence indicated a terrorist organization was planning coordinated attacks against American interests in 3 countries. The traditional approach would have involved separate intelligence agencies providing analysis to separate military and law enforcement organizations with limited coordination between efforts. Victoria's integrated center took a different approach, establishing a unified intelligence picture and coordinated response options that crossed traditional jurisdictional boundaries. The resulting operation disrupted the planned attacks with minimal collateral impact, demonstrating the effectiveness of the integrated approach. In the after-action review conducted with senior leadership, Victoria emphasized the contributions of specific team members, highlighting how their diverse backgrounds had contributed to the successful outcome. An analyst with refugee experience from the target region had recognized cultural patterns others missed. A former special operations officer had identified tactical vulnerabilities in the terrorist planning. Together, they had created insights neither could have developed alone. As the center's reputation grew, Victoria found herself increasingly in demand for congressional briefings, policy discussions, and international intelligence coordination. She navigated these responsibilities while maintaining her commitment to operational involvement regularly, participating in field exercises and occasionally deploying with operational teams during critical missions. This practice, unusual for someone of her rank, reinforced the center's culture of integration, ensuring headquarters decisions remained connected to operational realities. One evening, as Victoria worked late in her office, she received an unexpected visitor. Admiral Davis, now approaching retirement, had come to Washington for final consultations with senior defense officials. "Chen," he said warmly as she welcomed him into her office. "Thought I'd check on my most successful protégé. The center's making quite an impression across the community." Victoria smiled, acknowledging the compliment. "We're making progress, sir. Still plenty of institutional resistance, but the results are speaking for themselves." Davis settled into a chair, studying her thoughtfully. "You know, when I first reviewed your file after that confrontation in the briefing room, I had no idea where this path would lead. I just knew we had someone with exceptional capabilities being underutilized." Victoria nodded appreciatively. "That moment changed everything, sir. Not just for me, but for how we approach intelligence integration across the board." Davis leaned forward slightly. "That's what visionary leadership does, Chen. It recognizes potential where others see only current limitations. Sees the person behind the role, the capabilities beyond the title." As Davis departed, Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought her from underestimated analyst to national intelligence leader. Each step had built on the foundation established during her years as a sniper, the patience, precision, and clarity of purpose that defined her approach to operations. Those qualities had served her equally well behind a desk and in the field, enabling her to bridge worlds that traditionally operated separately. The desk jockey with the sniper's tattoo had found her unique contribution not by choosing between identities, but by integrating them, creating something more powerful than either could be alone. Somewhere across America, someone else was facing similar challenges today. Someone's capabilities were being overlooked because they didn't fit neatly into established categories or expectations. Victoria's story offered a reminder that true effectiveness often emerges at the intersection of seemingly different worlds where diverse experiences and perspectives combine to create unexpected insights and approaches. The most valuable contributions rarely come from those who fit perfectly within existing systems, but from those who bridge boundaries, bringing together capabilities others see as separate or even contradictory. 5 years after establishing the Joint Intelligence Integration Center, Victoria Chen had transformed the landscape of American intelligence operations. What began as an experimental approach had become standard doctrine with integrated teams, deployed worldwide, combining analytical rigor with operational experience. The center now occupied its own campus in Virginia, with specialized training facilities and coordination centers that supported operations across all government agencies. Victoria's innovation hadn't been technological, but methodological, creating frameworks that broke down institutional barriers and connected disparate capabilities. On a crisp autumn morning, Victoria stood before a gathering of intelligence professionals from 20 allied nations. The International Intelligence Coordination Summit represented the expansion of her integration principles beyond American agencies to coalition operations worldwide. As she surveyed the audience, she recognized intelligence directors from Britain, Australia, Canada, and other key partners, alongside operational commanders from NATO and allied military forces. Our greatest vulnerability isn't technology or resources, she began. It's fragmentation. When analysts and operators function in separate worlds, when intelligence agencies protect their sources and methods from each other, when nations withhold critical information from allies, we create gaps that adversaries exploit. Her words carried the weight of demonstrated success. The integration approaches she had pioneered had prevented terrorist attacks, disrupted trafficking networks, and enabled precision operations that saved countless lives. As she outlined the principles of intelligence integration, Victoria emphasized practical implementation over abstract theory. This isn't about organizational charts or memoranda of understanding, she continued. It's about people with different backgrounds, skills, and perspectives working together toward common objectives. It's about an analyst understanding the operational implications of their assessment and an operator recognizing the intelligence foundations of their mission. Most importantly, it's about creating systems where information flows to those who need it when they need it, regardless of organizational boundaries. Following her presentation, Victoria participated in working groups with international partners, adapting her integration frameworks to coalition operations. The discussions revealed both common challenges and unique national perspectives on intelligence sharing and operational coordination. Throughout these sessions, Victoria maintained the practical focus that had defined her approach from the beginning, emphasizing tangible processes over diplomatic niceties or bureaucratic considerations. That evening, the summit hosted a formal reception at the National Gallery of Art. As Victoria moved through the gathering in her dress uniform, she found herself approached by General Roberts, the British Military Intelligence Director. "Remarkable presentation, Captain," he began. "Your integration methodologies have transformed how we approach joint operations. They've quite literally saved lives in multiple theaters." Victoria acknowledged the compliment professionally. "The principles are straightforward, General. Their implementation is where the real work happens." Roberts nodded thoughtfully. "That's precisely what makes your approach so effective. You've maintained operational relevance while building strategic capabilities. A rare combination in our field." He gestured toward a quiet alcove away from the main gathering. "If you have a moment, There's something specific I'd like to discuss." Victoria followed, curious about the British general's interest. As they reached a more private space, Roberts spoke candidly. "We're establishing a multinational intelligence fusion center focused on emerging threats, hybrid warfare, cyber operations, and non-traditional challenges. We'd like you to consider taking command once your current appointment concludes." Victoria maintained her composed expression, despite her surprise. The offer represented an unprecedented opportunity to expand her integration principles to multinational operations. It also presented complex questions about career path, loyalty to American interests, and personal objectives. "General, I'm honored by your consideration, but my current role..." Roberts raised a hand in understanding. "This would be a formal appointment through proper channels, Captain. Your government is aware of our interest and broadly supportive, though of course the final decision would be yours. We're simply ensuring you know the opportunity exists as you consider your next steps." As the reception continued, Victoria found herself approached by leaders from various agencies and nations, each expressing appreciation for her contributions to intelligence methodology. What struck her most about these interactions was how many mentioned specific operations where integrated approaches had made critical differences. These weren't abstract policy discussions, but acknowledgments of lives saved, missions accomplished, and threats neutralized through more effective intelligence integration. Following the summit, Victoria returned to the center's headquarters, finding herself summoned to a secured video conference with the Secretary of Defense. After exchanging pleasantries, the Secretary addressed the British offer directly. "I understand. General Roberts discussed the multinational fusion center with you, Captain." Victoria nodded. "Yes, sir. It was an unexpected approach." The Secretary smiled slightly. "Not entirely unexpected, Chen. Your reputation extends well beyond our borders. The question is whether this represents the best use of your capabilities going forward." Victoria considered carefully before responding. "The multinational dimension presents unique challenges and opportunities, sir. Implementing integration principles across different national security cultures would be complex but potentially transformative." The Secretary nodded. "Precisely why they want you specifically." He paused, studying her through the secure video link. "There's another factor to consider. The President has asked me to evaluate candidates for the next Director of National Intelligence. Your name features prominently in those discussions." The implication hung in the digital space between them. The position would place Victoria at the pinnacle of American intelligence operations, with authority over all 16 intelligence agencies and direct advisory responsibilities to the President. It represented a level of influence and responsibility far beyond anything she had imagined when she first transitioned from field operations to intelligence analysis. "Sir, that's well above my current position and experience level," she began carefully. The Secretary shook his head. "Your experience is precisely what makes you a compelling candidate, Chen. You've demonstrated the ability to integrate disparate capabilities, bridge institutional divides, and maintain operational relevance while building strategic frameworks. These are exactly the qualities needed in that office." As the conversation concluded, the Secretary left Victoria with clear guidance. "Take some time to consider both opportunities, Captain. Either path would allow you to expand the integration principles you've established. The choice ultimately reflects your assessment of where you can make the greatest contribution." A decision with national and potentially international implications now rested on Victoria's shoulders, an ironic development for someone who had once been dismissed as a mere desk jockey. That evening, Victoria sat alone in her apartment, considering the divergent paths before her. The multinational position offered the chance to expand her integration principles, globally working with diverse national security cultures to create truly integrated coalition capabilities. The potential DNI role presented the opportunity to reshape American intelligence at the highest level, establishing Integration as the foundational principle across all agencies and operations. Both represented extraordinary platforms for the methodologies she had pioneered. As she contemplated these options, Victoria found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. The precision and focus of her sniper training had shaped her approach to every subsequent challenge. The analytical rigor of intelligence work had expanded her perspective beyond tactical operations to strategic implications. The leadership challenges of building integrated teams had taught her to recognize and utilize diverse capabilities regardless of source or background. Each phase had built upon the others, creating a unique combination of skills and perspectives that now placed her at the center of national security discussions. Victoria's contemplation was interrupted by a secure call from Jackson, now a captain himself and head of Naval Intelligence for the Pacific region. "Heard about your options," he began without preamble. "Impressive choices." Victoria smiled at his directness, a characteristic that had evolved from arrogance to refreshing candor over their years of collaboration. "News travels fast, Commander." Jackson laughed. "Intelligence is my business, remember." His tone grew more serious. "For what it's worth, I think either role suits your capabilities. The question is which one allows you to have the greatest impact. On operations, the real work that happens beyond headquarters and summit meetings." His observation crystallized Victoria's thinking. Throughout her career from sniper to intelligence director, she had maintained connection to operational reality, the ground truth that gave meaning and context to analysis and policy. Whichever path she chose would need to preserve that connection, ensuring her work remained relevant to those who implemented decisions in the field. "Thank you, Jackson," she said sincerely. "That perspective helps clarify things." After careful consideration, Victoria requested meetings with both the Secretary of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence. In these discussions, she outlined specific conditions for accepting either position. The multinational role would require authorities that enabled practical implementation beyond diplomatic coordination. The DNI position would need to include direct operational connection, maintaining the integration of analysis and operations she had established at the center. In both cases, she emphasized that her interest wasn't in the position itself, but in the opportunity to expand integration principles in ways that directly improved operational effectiveness. 2 weeks later, Victoria received formal offers for both positions, each structured to accommodate her core requirements. The decision ultimately rested on her assessment of where integration principles could have the greatest impact in the current global security environment. After consulting with trusted advisors and reflecting on her own experience, Victoria accepted the nomination as Director of National Intelligence with specific authority to implement integration methodologies across all intelligence agencies and operations. The confirmation process proved challenging as congressional committees questioned whether someone with her unconventional background possessed the broad experience necessary for such a significant position. Victoria addressed these concerns, directly emphasizing the practical results her approaches had achieved and the importance of maintaining operational relevance in intelligence leadership. Her testimony resonated particularly with committee members who had served in military or intelligence roles themselves, who recognized the value of her integrated perspective. Following her confirmation, Victoria assumed leadership of America's intelligence community at a time of unprecedented complexity and rapid change. Traditional threats from state actors continued alongside emerging challenges from non-state groups, cyber operations, and hybrid warfare. The intelligence architecture she inherited reflected decades of institutional development with agencies protecting authorities' resources and access from perceived encroachment by others. Transforming this landscape would require more than policy directives or organizational changes. It would demand cultural shifts, procedural innovations, and demonstrable improvements in operational effectiveness. Victoria began by establishing Integrated Operations Centers had brought together specialists from across agencies to address specific threat categories. Unlike previous coordination mechanisms, these centers operated with actual authorities, resources, and direct operational connections, ensuring they could translate intelligence into action without bureaucratic delays. She personally selected leaders for these centers, choosing individuals who combined analytical expertise with operational experience, regardless of their parent agency or conventional career path. 6 months into her tenure, the integrated approach faced its first major test when intelligence indicated a sophisticated cyber campaign targeting critical infrastructure across multiple countries. Traditional responses would have involved separate agencies addressing different aspects of the threat with limited coordination. Victoria's integrated centers took a comprehensive approach, combining technical analysis from cyber specialists with operational insights from field personnel and strategic context from policy experts. The resulting operation neutralized the threat through synchronized actions across multiple domains, demonstrating the effectiveness of true integration. As news of the successful operation reached the White House, Victoria received a personal call from the president. "Impressive work, Director Chen," he began. "Your integrated approach allowed us to address the full spectrum of the threat, not just its individual components." Victoria acknowledged the compliment while emphasizing the contributions of the integrated teams. "Sir, the credit belongs to the specialists who implemented the operation. What made the difference was creating frameworks that allowed them to combine their capabilities effectively." Beyond operational successes, Victoria focused on institutional transformation, creating career paths that rewarded integration experience over agency loyalty. She established training programs that exposed intelligence professionals to multiple disciplines and operational contexts, ensuring analysts understood field realities and operators appreciated analytical methodologies. Most significantly, she implemented a rotation system that eventually ensured senior intelligence leaders had experience across multiple agencies and functions, breaking down the tribal perspectives that had historically limited coordination. These changes faced resistance from institutional stakeholders comfortable with established authorities and procedures. Victoria addressed this resistance not through mandate, but through demonstrated effectiveness, showing how integrated approaches produced better operational outcomes than traditional methods. When agencies saw their mission success improve through integration, their resistance gradually transformed into engagement, creating momentum for broader cultural change throughout the intelligence community. 3 years into her tenure as DNI, Victoria found herself addressing the graduating class at the National Intelligence University. As she surveyed the diverse group of future intelligence professionals, she recognized the opportunity to shape the next generation's understanding of their profession. "Intelligence isn't about collecting secrets or producing reports," she began. "It's about creating understanding that enables effective action. This fundamental purpose transcends agency boundaries, technical specialties, or source types. It connects everyone in this room, regardless of your specific role or destination." She continued, emphasizing the integration principles that had defined her approach. "The most valuable intelligence professional isn't the one who masters a single discipline, but the one who connects disciplines, creating insights no specialist could develop alone. Your effectiveness won't be measured by the reports you write or the secrets you discover, but by the actions you enable and the outcomes those actions produce. Throughout your careers, remember that intelligence without operational relevance is merely information. Intelligence that enables effective action is wisdom." As her address concluded, Victoria noticed a young woman in the front row watching with particular intensity. In this student's expression, Victoria recognized something of herself years earlier: the quiet determination and analytical focus that others might mistake for mere academic interest. Following the ceremony, the student approached hesitantly. "Director, Chen, your integration methodologies have transformed how we study intelligence operations, she began. I'm particularly interested in your background as a field operator before entering intelligence analysis. How did that experience shape your approach to integration? Victoria studied the young woman, recognizing genuine curiosity rather than mere professional networking. What's your background, Lieutenant? The young woman straightened slightly. Army intelligence, ma'am. I was a linguist with special operations before applying to the intelligence program. Victoria nodded with understanding. So you've seen both sides, the operational requirements and the analytical processes. The lieutenant nodded. Yes, ma'am. That's why your integration principles resonate so strongly. I've experienced the disconnects firsthand. Victoria considered the young officer thoughtfully. Those disconnects exist because we've created artificial boundaries between collection analysis and operations, treating them as separate disciplines rather than elements of a single process. Your experience across those boundaries is precisely what the community needs more of, especially in leadership positions. She reached into her pocket, removing a business card. When you complete your program, Lieutenant, contact my office. We're always looking for people who understand integration. From personal experience. As Victoria departed the campus, she reflected on this encounter, recognizing in the young officer the seeds of future transformation. The integration principles she had established would outlast her tenure, not through policies or directives, but through people who understood their value from personal experience. Each generation of intelligence professionals who bridged traditional boundaries would strengthen the integration culture, ensuring it became standard practice rather than exceptional innovation. In the years that followed Victoria's integration, methodologies became foundational doctrine across the intelligence community and beyond. The artificial divisions between analysts and operators, between collection and action, between various intelligence disciplines gradually dissolved, replaced by integrated approaches that matched the complexity of modern security challenges. Professionals who could navigate multiple domains, combining diverse perspectives and capabilities, became the most valued assets in the community, regardless of their specific technical specialty or parent organization. On the 5th anniversary of assuming the D&I position, Victoria found herself in the Oval Office briefing the President on emerging security trends. As she concluded her assessment, the President noted the transformation that had occurred under her leadership. You've fundamentally changed how we understand and address national security challenges, Director Chen, he observed. The integration you've established doesn't just improve our operations, it alters how we conceive of threats and opportunities. Victoria acknowledged the observation. Integration isn't just a methodology, Mr. President. It's a mindset that recognizes complex challenges require diverse capabilities working in concert, not isolation. As she departed the White House, Victoria noticed a memorial ceremony underway at Arlington National Cemetery visible in the distance. The site reminded her of the ultimate purpose behind her methodological innovations, not organizational efficiency or professional advancement, but the protection of lives and interests through more effective security operations. Every improvement in intelligence integration translated to operations that succeeded with less risk, reduced collateral impact, and greater precision. These weren't abstract achievements, but tangible differences in outcomes for those who implemented decisions in the field. That evening, Victoria found herself alone in her office reviewing reports from integrated centers worldwide. On her desk sat the challenge coin from Captain Hayes, her original mentor, now displayed alongside tokens from operations and agencies she had connected throughout her career. Beside these stood a small framed photograph of her sniper team from years earlier, a reminder of where her journey had begun and the foundational skills that had shaped her approach to every subsequent challenge. Victoria Chen had transformed American intelligence not by abandoning her operational background for analytical expertise, or by rejecting desk work for field operations, but by integrating these seemingly contradictory elements into a unified approach. The desk jockey with the sniper's precision had found her unique contribution by bridging worlds others saw as separate, creating methodologies that honored both analytical rigor and operational reality, both strategic vision and tactical execution. Somewhere across America, someone else was facing artificial boundaries. Today, institutional divisions that limited their contribution or professional categories that failed to recognize their unique combination of capabilities. Victoria's story offered a reminder that true innovation often emerges not from conforming to established patterns but from integrating diverse experiences and perspectives into new approaches that transcend traditional limitations. The most valuable contributions rarely come from fitting perfectly within existing systems, but from bridging boundaries, bringing together capabilities others see as separate or even contradictory. The admiral who noticed the sniper tattoo years earlier had recognized something essential, not just about Victoria Chen, but about human potential itself. Our greatest capabilities often lie hidden beneath surface appearances and conventional roles, waiting for the right moment and opportunity to emerge. The measure of leadership is creating environments where those hidden capabilities can be recognized, developed, and applied wherever they appear, regardless of title, background, or career path. In doing so, we don't just utilize individual potential. We transform entire systems, making them more effective, adaptive, and resilient in the face of complex challenges. Victoria's journey from underestimated analyst to transformative leader offered a powerful truth about personal and professional growth. We are not defined by single identities or narrow specialties, but by the unique combinations of experiences, skills, and perspectives we bring to every challenge. Our greatest contributions come not from choosing between these elements, but from integrating them in ways that create new possibilities and approaches. Whether in intelligence operations, business leadership, or personal development, true effectiveness emerges when we refuse to be limited by others' expectations or conventional categories, instead bringing our full capabilities to bear on the challenges before us. As you watch this story from wherever you are across America or around the world, consider the boundaries you face in your own life. The artificial divisions between professional categories, the limitations imposed by others' expectations, the hidden capabilities waiting to be recognized and developed. Your path forward may not require choosing between seemingly contradictory elements of your experience or identity, but integrating them in ways that create unique value and contribution. Like Victoria Chen, you may find your greatest impact comes not from fitting perfectly within established systems, but from bridging boundaries, bringing together capabilities others see as separate or even contradictory. The desk jockey with the sniper tattoo reminds us that true potential often lies beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment and opportunity to emerge. Patient, precise, and ultimately transformative, it requires only the courage to integrate seemingly different worlds into new approaches that honor the full spectrum of our capabilities and experiences. Wherever you are, whatever boundaries you face, remember that integration rather than limitation may be the path to your greatest contribution, not despite your diverse background and experiences, but because of them. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, where we share stories of hidden strength, unexpected capability, and transformative leadership. Drop a comment below sharing your own experience with being underestimated or discovering capabilities others didn't recognize. We'd love to hear from our amazing viewers around the world about how you've integrated different aspects of your experience to create your own unique path forward. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.